So my results have just come back today from one of these mail order blood labs. So these seem to be becoming increasingly popular. I've seen a few of these advertised over the last few weeks where you pay for a kit online. In that comes a little vial and some of those finger clickers, those clickers you press against your skin, you bleed a little bit, you put it in the vial, you return it back to them, and 2 or 3 days later they let you know your blood results. They're pretty good. You can select from a various list or a list of different markers in your blood you want to look for. For myself, I was interested specifically in testosterone, vitamin B12, vitamin D, and iron. Now, I am prone to anemia. I have a genetic disorder, a disease, I guess you would call it, called beta thalassemia trait. It's not really a big deal, but I'm just prone to becoming anemic, prone to having low iron levels. B12 and D, I think, so much of the UK and Western population is low in both B12 and vitamin D. And testosterone is just a really interesting one. I think the testosterone in men is decreasing by something like 1% every year, which is very worrying. So I wanted to get my levels checked out and see where I stood on that. No one really knows why testosterone is dropping. It could be sort of some kind of toxicity, maybe from plastics, overuse of plastics, plastic drinking bottles, things like that. No one actually really knows why, but it's a bit of a problem. Now, the test for me was somewhat difficult. I'm not a big fan of blood, more so needles, actually. About 6 months ago, someone was stabbed outside the front of the house. Between my girlfriend and I, mostly my girlfriend, she basically saved his life. This guy had a massive machete laceration cut to his head, had been stabbed 6 or 7 times in the stomach and legs. There was quite a lot of blood. That didn't really freak me out, but then I was pretty much running on adrenaline anyway, so there wasn't really time to mess around. As I say, my girlfriend did most of the life saving. I basically just phoned 999 and was flapping in the corner. But the blood in that didn't really faze me, but needles specifically kind of freaked me out. So I got my girlfriend, basically, who's harder than me. She did the finger clicker. I sat and didn't look, and she filled the vial up with the blood. So if you're like me and you don't really like needles, you probably want to consider like another person to help you out, getting the blood out. That's just the setup I had to go for. I didn't want to waste the test. I didn't want to waste the money. It didn't really cost a huge amount. You could get these tests done for free, I guess, on the NHS. Depends how much your GP likes you, how concerned they are. I've had one test done by the NHS in the past, and it turns out the doctor didn't even actually, when they sent the form back that goes with it to the lab to what they're actually looking for in the blood, they didn't even actually check for things that I actually asked them that I was specifically worried about. So if you've really got a good relationship with your GP, maybe you can get some of these tests done. But this would have cost about £70, and I had like a £10 new customer voucher. So it only really cost me about 60 quid. So the hassle of going to see my GP, them messing me around, and then not even checking what I want them to check, 60 quid for your health, I think is pretty worth getting done. Now, I'm not the most overly healthy person. I'm probably healthier, I guess, than the average Brit. Run once or twice a week, ride my bike once or twice a week. Not like the cleanest eater, but I do try and eat somewhat healthy. Like last few weeks, I've been eating more steak than normal because, I'm prone to anemia. So if I feel myself becoming a bit more tired, then I just play around my diet. Last few weeks been, experimenting, eating steak, 5-6 times a week just to boost up my iron levels. Not the most overly healthy person, but I do try and take steps and measures, and I'm probably healthier than the average Brit. But that's not really saying much, the average person. I don't drink to excess. I drink maybe once, twice a week. Sometimes I go months without drinking. It's not really a vice for me. I don't smoke. I do try and eat okay, but then I do like takeaways and stuff like that. So I'm fairly average. I'm not like a super keno when it comes to being healthy. So run through the tests now. So you have like different options what you want them to test. They can't actually test everything because the amount of blood in the vial, there's a limit to how many you can have checked. But it is like a subscription service. This company specifically, there's different companies going to do it different ways. They probably will run off the subscription model where I think they send you a test like every 3 months, and you can pick and choose what you want tested. I'll probably have the next one done just because some of the things were out of range this test. I want to see if they go back into range. But I wouldn't have like the cholesterol and stuff done next time because I'm happy with the results, and I'm not really that's not one I'm too concerned about. So we'll get straight into it. Testosterone. They were looking for quite a few different markers when it comes to testosterone. So we'll run through those different numbers now. So testosterone, free or unbound. The results for that actually came back as high. That was 0.65 nanomoles a litre. Just plain testosterone, 35.6 nanomoles per litre. SHBG, which stands for sex hormone binding globulin, that was in normal range, 47, and free androgen index was a ratio of 75:1, which is in the normal range. So when you just ask them to test testosterone, they're not just giving you one number, they're giving you quite an oversight there. So my numbers were high, which is interesting because I was actually very worried about them being low, because that is, you just go on YouTube, put low testosterone, it's sort of like a big crisis at the moment. So mine is high, which I'm not too concerned about. I'd much rather be high testosterone than low. The only downside is that could be, if it was if it was much more high than this, I'd maybe be concerned. It could be like a testicular tumor, which is the great thing about having yourself tested, right? You kind of know, you start getting an insight, oh, maybe that's something I should look out for the future. But high testosterone, rather be high, I guess. Low's difficult because it's difficult to bounce back from that. Maybe I'm just I'm not too high. I'm much rather be high than low, I guess. I'll read out at the end that a doctor actually gives you like a couple of paragraphs based on your results, just to kind of reassure you. But I'm quite lucky. My girlfriend actually is also a doctor, so she's run through the results and it's fairly okay. Nothing major to worry about. So the next marker I had tested was iron. This test actually went wrong. They couldn't check all the iron levels because the sample, basically within the sample, the blood cells had burst. I think my girlfriend was a bit forceful in taking the blood from my finger, so that burst the cells. So they couldn't actually test all the iron markers. Most of those they couldn't test. They could check ferritin, which was 368, come back as normal. So that's not a bad thing. And so I'll have this test done again next time on the subscription, and I get the iron test done again. I'll ask my girlfriend to be a little more gentle next time when she takes the blood out. They had the check thyroid profile. I won't go too much into all of these. I'll basically leave screenshots at the end. If you really want to go in depth into my blood markers, I'll just put screenshot for the last few seconds of this video, and you can check all of those. Otherwise, the video will be extremely long if we go into everyone. So vitamin B9 and B12. B12 come back as normal, which I'm very, very happy about. I don't supplement for B12. A lot of people are low. So, I mean, it could be higher. It would be better if the number's a little bit higher, but it's inside the normal range. And it said B9 and B12, but I only got B12 tested. I think B9 maybe was a different test. Anyway, B12 was normal. Cholesterol, fairly normal figures at the end. As I say, at the end, they basically all come back as normal. Triglycerides were optimal. I'll leave the screenshots at the end because otherwise it'll take too long. Liver function, mostly optimal is what I'm seeing here. One's normal. Bilirubin optimal. So those are all good. And vitamin D, which was one I was really interested in, come back as 64 nanomoles per litre, which is sufficient, which could be higher. So altogether, I was actually happy with how the test panned out. Testosterone, I was worried about it being low, just because you hear a lot about that in the media. Actually come back as high. So I guess normal range would be optimal, but high. Have that checked again in 3 months' time, see how that sits. B12 and D, I'm happy that the levels they're at could be slightly higher. And iron, unfortunately, they couldn't really test that, but ferritin's come out okay. So I guess for full disclosure, for supplements I take, I do, not every day because I forget sometimes, but I take an iron tablet every day. That's 200 mg of ferrous sulfate. I say I have the thalassemia trait anyway, so I'm prone to low iron, so it's sensible for me to supplement iron every day. The other tablet I try and take every day, unless I forget, is a calcium tablet. I think it's Osteocare or something like that. My girlfriend's not very knowledgeable. She said that's the best one for me to take, and that's a mixture of calcium, magnesium, vitamin D, and zinc. So I am supplementing somewhat with vitamin D because it's in that calcium tablet. I'll just read through it's a very nice format when you get this just from this company. You kind of got all the test results there, but at the very top, the doctor writes a little paragraph. It says, hi Jason, your testosterone is raised. However, levels can fluctuate a lot and minor changes like this are often insignificant, so I'd suggest you repeat next month. And if it's still raised, then discuss with your GP in case they feel investigation is needed. Your thyroxine level is slightly high. Minor changes like this are often transitory, so as long as you feel fine, just retest in 1 month and discuss with your GP if it's still high. However, if you feel unwell, talk with your GP now. Your vitamin D is at the lower end of normal, so take a supplement to top this up. I mean, I do have vitamin D supplementation in that calcium tablet, but it's probably not a huge amount of vitamin D in that. Actually, at the moment, I forgot to actually say, this week, after these tests were done, then I've started taking 800 IU vitamin D tablet. I've only taken that twice now, but I'm actually supplemented with vitamin D. I didn't want to take it before I did the blood tests, because otherwise then vitamin D would be like really high. But then it would only just be through supplementation. I wanted just to kind of get a base level. And at the moment, I'm just taking those calcium tablets. So vitamin D is at the lower end of normal, so take a supplement to top this up. Although your HDL, good cholesterol, is low, your ratio is fine, and it is the ratio that is the strongest predictor of cardiovascular disease. So don't worry too much about this, as your cardiovascular risk is not increased. However, do try and follow the dietary advice given below. And the rest of the results we have back are all fine, but unfortunately the lab were unable to process some of your tests. So, I mean, for £60, it's very reassuring. I think the NHS GPs kind of have a policy of they don't want people having too many blood tests because some people are hypochondriacs. I'm not really. If I had these blood tests back and something was very low or something was extremely high, the fact you're watching this video means you're a fairly rational person. You're out there interested, testosterone, vitamin D, B12, stuff like that. I think the worry is they get really irrational people, hypochondriacs, going into the GPs, which happens every day. It's why the GP service is what it is, because they have a lot of people going in there. Unfortunately, GPs only have a limited amount of time, and a lot of their time is taken up by people that maybe aren't unhealthy and using up those valuable appointments. So I can see why the NHS GPs don't want everybody to have blood tests, because then they just fill their appointment slots with people that are worried about stuff that's maybe only marginally outside the range. But for me, I'm like an information. I'm a very, as much data for me is a good thing. Like if I'm driving a car, I'd much, there's these cars now where they don't even have a temperature gauge. It just lights up if it's overheating. I think that's a terrible idea. I want to know what the temperature gauge is, because if the temperature starts creeping up, maybe it's not dangerously high, but I'll be, okay, temperature's going up. Is the coolant okay? Is there a hole in the radiator? Just data's a good thing in my opinion. So getting your levels checked. Okay, maybe that's creeping up. Maybe I need to adjust my diet, or get off my arse, do a bit of running. I think it's only a good thing for like £60. It's just of interest. It's just interesting to know what your testosterone level is, what your B12 and vitamin D is. I think it's quite interesting. So hopefully some of you may have found this video useful. I'd really recommend it, unless you are a hypochondriac, then just give it a skip. But for the average person, it's good to know where your levels are. You're probably realistically not going to get it done by your GP, unless your GP is incredibly good, in which case hold on to that GP. But yeah, I'm happy with my levels. Testosterone, high levels. I don't know, I've only recently become like a dad for the second time, so I actually feel quite masculine at the moment. It's like a pretty, cool thing to be doing. It makes you feel very manly. So maybe my testosterone levels are just elevated because of that. Just being a dad, just being a dad, you feel pretty like hard-charging male. Yeah, I'm happy with these blood results anyway. So thanks for watching this video, guys. If you had a test done recently, if you've done one of these mail order tests, and let me know in the comments below. What's your testosterone levels like? What's your B12? What's your D like? It's just of interest. And if your levels are way out of whack, it's not a big deal. At least you know, so you can make changes and adjustments to fix yourself. Anyway, thanks for watching this video, guys. Hope it's of interest to you, and I'll see you in the next video.